welcome to another deep dive. Today, our mission is, well, it's pretty simple. We are going to rescue you from the exhausting cycle of information overload and, productivity app burnout.
Oh yeah, the burnout is so real.
It totally is. And to do this, we are unpacking a massive, just encyclopedic stack of material today. We've got elite systems, architecture documents, expert prompt sequences, and these top-tier software training syllabuses.
It is a phenomenal, really dense set of blueprints we're looking at.
Right. And the topic we are pulling from all this, we are building the ultimate top 1% hybrid productivity system for you. And we're using two absolute powerhouses to do it, Workflowy and Notion.
Yeah, and it addresses a failure point that honestly almost everyone hits when they try to get organized.
Right, because usually when we talk about productivity, there is this expectation that one perfect app is going to save us. Like, we're all looking for that ultimate Swiss Army knife.
Exactly, the one-size-fits-all myth.
Yeah, you want it to do absolutely everything. You want your notes, your tasks, your calendar, your database, all in one single window. But then you actually try to, chop down a tree with that tiny little saw attachment on the Swiss Army knife, and suddenly you're just exhausted and frustrated.
That is exactly what happens. We love the idea of an all-in-one solution because, well, it feels clean conceptually. We like having everything in one neat little box.
Right.
But the architecture we are looking at today proves that trying to force a single application to handle every single cognitive state, it is the absolute definition of software burnout. You inevitably end up spending way more time managing the tool than actually doing the work.
Okay, let's unpack this. What is the alternative? Because the stake here for you, the listener, is that most people fail at this entirely. If the Swiss Army knife approach causes massive friction in the real world, when you're managing fleeting thoughts and long-term knowledge, what are we actually building today instead?
Right, so if we connect this to the bigger picture, before we get into any of the technical hacks or the specific settings, we absolutely have to establish the golden rule of this hybrid system.
The core philosophy.
Exactly. We are building a two-brain architecture. And the golden rule is the strict separation of mind and memory. If you don't get this cognitive model right, the whole thing just collapses into chaos.
So we are actively splitting the workload between the two apps.
Precisely. You have to understand what cognitive function each tool serves. Workflowy is your front end. Think of it like your computer's RAM or, your short-term memory.
Okay, RAM. I like that.
Right. It is the thinking engine. It is designed for rapid capture, outlining, and just really messy brainstorming. It is completely fluid. Notion, on the other hand, is your backend. It is your hard drive.
The structured memory.
Yes, exactly. It is where you put permanent databases, heavy project management, and those final polished outputs.
Okay, so trying to brainstorm in Notion is like trying to sketch a painting on a rigid Excel spreadsheet.
Oh, totally.
And storing long-term project data in Workflowy is like trying to file your tax returns on a whiteboard.
That is the perfect way to visualize it. Notion is incredibly powerful, but all of those blocks, properties, relational databases, will create massive cognitive friction. You just need to think.
You have to fill out fields just to capture a single thought.
Exactly. Workflowy is just an infinite, zoomable, bulleted list. It moves at the exact speed of your thoughts. But because it is just a series of bullets, it lacks the rigid, queryable structure you need for a true permanent archive.
But wait, I have to play devil's advocate for a second here. Doesn't forcing yourself to use two different apps actually create more friction in your day? I mean, you are jumping back and forth between windows. You have to remember where you put things.
Right.
Doesn't context switching kind of defeat the whole purpose of being productive?
It is a very logical concern, but the system architects completely debunk that. Blurring the lines is what actually causes the friction, not the app switching. Yeah. When you try to make Notion your quick capture inbox, the app simply takes too long to load on mobile. You have to navigate database properties, and by the time you are ready to type, you've lost the thought.
So the friction of waiting for the tool to accommodate you is actually worse than the friction of having two separate tools.
Exactly. When you respect the boundary capturing everything instantly in Workflowy and only storing refined, finished data in Notion, the system becomes lightning fast.
Wow.
The documentation shows this specific two-brain architecture scales to tens of thousands of notes without ever slowing down or feeling heavy. You are simply using the right tool for the right cognitive state.
The problem I see, though, is that having a lightning-fast thinking engine is great, but human nature kind of kicks in. If I just start making infinite bulleted lists in Workflowy because it's so fast, I know from experience that I will get completely lost in a sea of text within a week.
Oh, the junk drawer problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
How do the pros actually navigate this without it becoming a giant digital junk drawer?
This is where we have to look at how the top 1% of users interact with the tool. There is a major hidden gem about Workflowy's interface. Beginners use nested folders to find things. Masters use search operators as their primary interface.
Wait, so they are clicking through layers of lists. Like if I have a work folder and then a tasks folder and an active folder, they aren't drilling down into them.
No, because clicking through visual hierarchies causes cognitive load. Every time you have to decide which folder something belongs in, you are burning mental energy.
Makes a lot of sense, actually.
Right. So instead, elite users rely on tags and highly specific search queries. You basically treat your outline like a database query. You tag your bullets as you wrote them, maybe hashtag task or hashtag idea or @client name. Then you use search operators to summon dynamic lists instantly.
So what does that actually look like in practice? Give me an example of a master level query.
Okay, a true power user will open Workflowy and simply type something like hashtag task minus hashtag done last changed :70 into the search bar.
Okay, wow, that sounds like a literal line of code. Break the mechanics of that down for us.
It is essentially a query language for your thoughts. Hashtag task pulls up every single bullet in your entire account that has that tag.
Right.
The minus sign before hashtag done acts as a Boolean exclusion, so it actively hides anything you have already completed.
Well, that's smart.
Yeah, and the last changed :7 modifier filters the results to only show items you have physically interacted with or edited in the last 7 days.
That is wild. So you type that and it instantly summons a dynamic, updated dashboard of your active immediate priorities.
Exactly. Regardless of where they're actually buried in your outline, you don't have to organize anything. The search operator organizes it for you on the fly.
Completely eliminates the need for complex folder trees.
It does, and this ties directly into another massive feature detailed in the architecture mirrors. You create these using a double parenthesis shortcut, so the open parenthesis typed twice.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because in the world of note-taking, we hear the term backlink all the time.
All the time.
Yeah, Notion uses backlinks, Obsidian uses them, Rome uses them. What is the actual difference between a mirror and a backlink? And when should you use which? Because I think people get these two completely confused, and using the wrong one would totally break the system.
It is a critical distinction to grasp. Think of it this way. Mirrors are for the exact same object living in multiple contexts at the exact same time. It is synchronized presence.
Synchronized presence.
For example, let's say you have a task to call the accountant. That task needs to live inside Project A's outline, but you also want it to live in your Today view outline.
Right, but I don't want to copy and paste it, because then if I check it off in one place, I have to go find the other one and check it off there too. I'd forget.
Precisely. So you mirror it. When you mirror a bullet, you are creating a live clone. It is one single truth existing in two places. When you check it off in your Today view, it instantly, simultaneously checks off inside the project outline.
Okay, so that is a mirror. Synchronized action. How does a backlink function differently under the hood?
Backlinks are for referencing an object's history or establishing a relationship, rather than cloning the object itself. You use a backlink when you are logging an event that references something permanent.
Give me an example of that.
Sure, so in your daily notes, you might write that you had a meeting with a specific colleague. You backlink to their permanent profile node. You aren't cloning the colleague into your daily note, you are just pointing an arrow back to them.
Got it.
That way, when you click on their profile later, you have a historical trail of every time you have ever interacted with them. Mirrors equal action. Backlinks equal reference.
Wow. That distinction alone just saved a lot of people from building very messy systems. Now, having this lightning-fast, query-driven engine on your desktop is amazing, but it is totally useless if you lose your best ideas while you are out getting coffee.
Oh, definitely.
The mobile bottleneck is where most productivity systems go to die. How do we solve that?
The mobile experience is historically where a lot of power users report immense friction. The blueprints we are looking at provide a very detailed mobile-first capture net, specifically focusing on optimizing the Android experience, which actually has some unique advantages here.
Well, if nested folders cause cognitive load on a desktop, I am guessing trying to drill down into a 10-level deep outline on a tiny touchscreen is an absolute nightmare.
It is the biggest blind spot users have. They try to replicate their complex desktop architecture on their phone. When you try to drill down into folder after folder, it causes touch lag, the screen gets visually cluttered, and your brain dumps the idea before you have even found the right place to type it.
So what is the solution? I'm guessing they just dump everything into a single flat list and deal with it later.
That is exactly it. The designers call it the anti-nested design pattern.
Anti-nested.
Yeah. On mobile, you have to strictly enforce a flat architecture. Instead of burying a thought, you just open the app and type it immediately into your root inbox, and you tag it with a simple hashtag caption. That is it.
Just dump it and tag it. Zero friction.
You rely entirely on those search operators we just talked about to find and process the information later when you are back in the real world.
And there are some very specific hidden gems for Android users to make this even faster, right?
Absolutely. The 2026 Android update introduced a dedicated quick add widget. You place this widget on your home screen, and when you tap it, a tiny text box overlays your screen instantly. It doesn't even launch the full app.
Wait, it doesn't even open the app?
Nope. You can type your idea, hit send, and it fires silently into your Workflowy inbox in the background.
So literally zero app launch time. You don't even see the outline. You just throw the thought into the void and it catches it.
There's also a brilliant email to Workflowy routing feature. You are assigned a unique email address securely linked to your personal inbox node.
Oh, that's incredibly useful.
Yeah, so if you are reading an article on your phone and want to save it, you just use the standard Android share sheet, share the link to that secret email address, and it lands straight in your outline. Add in the ability to literally just swipe right on a bullet to mark a task as complete while you are walking down the street, and the mobile experience goes from being a frustrating bottleneck to being a hyper-fast, frictionless capture net.
Okay, so this all sounds flawless up to this point. We've bypassed the mobile lag, we're capturing perfectly on the go, and we have a query system. But here is the logical friction. Now I have a massive flat list of raw, messy thoughts sitting in an inbox. How do we keep this from becoming a digital junkyard?
Right, the processing phase.
Yeah, how do we promote those messy thoughts into permanent, structured knowledge? Basically, how do Workflowy and Notion actually talk to each other?
This brings us to the core mechanism of the two-brain system, the weekly promotion ritual. This is the crucial moment where the fluid thinking engine, the RAM, and the structured memory, the hard drive, finally interact. The secret here is that you do not try to sync them in real time. You batch process.
Okay, so what does this all mean for daily execution? If we look at a classic framework like GTD, getting things done, how does that workflow actually operate across these two apps?
With GTD, during your week, you are aggressively dumping absolutely everything into that Workflowy inbox. Then, during your weekly processing ritual, you sit down and look at the raw feed. If a task takes 2 minutes, you just do it right then and swipe it away.
Classic GTD rule.
Exactly. But let's say you look at a bullet, and over the week, it has grown into a complex project with multiple subtasks, client notes, and hard deadlines. It has officially outgrown the scratch pad.
Right, it needs serious structure. It needs to be assigned to a team, it needs a due date, it needs Notion.
Exactly. So you select that entire branch in Workflowy, and you export it as Markdown. And this is the magic bridge between the two apps.
Yeah, let's hover on that for a second.
Yeah.
Why is Markdown the magic bridge here? Why not just copy and paste standard text?
Because Markdown is a universal plain text formatting language. When you use standard copy-paste, apps often fight over proprietary formatting. Fonts get weird, bullet points break, it's a mess.
Oh, yeah, I hate when that happens.
Right, but Markdown strips away the proprietary code. So you copy the raw Markdown structure from Workflowy, and when you paste it into a new entry inside your Notion project's database, Notion's processor instantly recognizes the syntax. It auto-formats everything into native headers, toggles, and checklists without you lifting a finger.
That is incredibly slick. So Workflowy was the runway where the idea was built, and Notion is where it actually takes flight and gets executed. That handles the tasks beautifully. But what about personal knowledge management? What about the Erokhane method for storing notes, research, and insight?
What's fascinating here is how beautifully this hybrid system handles the psychological evolution of an idea. In a proper Zettelkasten system, you have fleeting notes, those raw shower thoughts you capture, and literature notes, the quick highlights you take while reading an article.
Okay.
Workflowy is the ultimate incubator for these. You throw them in, you interlink them with backlinks, you let them sit, and you let them organically collide with each other in this messy web.
But they don't stay in Workflowy forever.
No, they don't. When a cluster of ideas matures and you realize you truly understand a concept, you rewrite it as a synthesized synthesize permanent note and move it into a structured Notion knowledge database. And the system architects stress a profound detail here regarding how you name that permanent note in Notion.
Really, like the actual page title.
Yes, the title cannot just be a generic topic.
Like I shouldn't just title the page Attention or Productivity.
Precisely. If you just label a page Attention, it becomes a dead filing cabinet. You'll just dump quotes in there and never look at them again. The title must be a full declarative claim statement. Something like, attention is a finite resource that degrades predictably over time.
Oh, wow. I see what that does. That totally shifts the psychology of the user.
Right.
Yeah, if I have to name it as a claim, it forces me to actually synthesize the information before I store it. It can't just be a digital hoarder collecting random links. I have to declare what I actually know to be true.
Exactly. You are transitioning from a collector to a thinker. Workflowy is where you figure out what you think. Notion is the permanent record of what you have concluded.
Okay, so manual batching via Markdown is fantastic for intentional review because it forces you to look at your work and synthesize it. But humans are lazy, and to reach the absolute top 1% of productivity, we eventually need to let the machines do some of the heavy lifting in the background. How do the elite users automate this workflow?
To truly scale this, you introduce an automation layer. You connect the two tools using third-party automation platforms like Zapier, Make.com, or N8NatN. These platforms act as an invisible bridge between the Workflowy API and the Notion API, handling the routing for you.
Walk us through a specific Zapier workflow.
Yeah.
How does that mechanically operate under the hood?
The logic is wonderfully elegant. You set up a trigger in Zapier, watch my Workflowy account for any new bullet that contains a specific tag, hashtag, task.
Good.
When the system sees that tag, the action fires. Take the text of that bullet, parse out any dates or context tags, and automatically create a new structured database item in my Notion task tracker.
So I can just be typing away in Workflowy completely in the flow state. I type hashtag task, and in the background, without me doing anything, a card pops up on my Notion Kanban board, ready for me to assign a due date to it later.
Exactly. It turns your fluid outlining environment into a command line for your rigid databases. However, the system architects offer a very specific, highly technical warning here about a blind spot that ruins a lot of setups. Uh-oh. What is the trap?
It has to do with how the Notion API recently changed its back-end management of databases. Notion fundamentally shifted their architecture. They moved from static databases to dynamic data sources. This means a single database view in Notion can now pull information from multiple different locations.
Okay, so how does that break the automation?
Because the API used to rely on a strict database ID. Now it requires a data source ID. If you have a Zapier automation that suddenly breaks and stops syncing your Workflowy bullets, this is almost always why.
Wow, just one word difference in the code.
Yeah, your automation tool is holding an old ID, essentially knocking on a digital door that Notion has removed. You have to go into Zapier and update the API call to look for the new data source structure. If you don't know that, you will spend days pulling your hair out trying to debug your setup.
That is exactly the kind of technical nuance that separates a working system from a broken one. And while we are on the topic of things breaking, what about two-way sync? If I check a box in Notion, I want it to magically check the box back in Workflowy. Is that possible? The documentation points out a major philosophical and technical trap here. True, two-way sync is incredibly fragile. Attempting to keep a fluid outline perfectly mirrored with a rigid relational database via third-party APIs is a recipe for disaster.
Really, even with good tools.
Oh, yeah. It usually results in infinite update loops, duplicated data, or worst of all, silently deleted text.
Ah, so the two systems just get confused about who holds the master copy.
Exactly. The power users advise sticking strictly to one-way flows. Workflowy pushes to Notion. The mind pushes to the memory. Keep the data flowing downstream in one direction.
And what happens if the API goes down completely, or worse, you accidentally set up a Zapier automation that accidentally deletes your entire Workflowy inbox instead of copying it?
That is why the final piece of the automation layer is the side channel backup. You simply cannot rely entirely on cloud APIs holding hands perfectly forever. Once a week, you should automatically export your entire Workflowy architecture into a plain Markdown file and save it to a local drive or a secure separate cloud folder.
Bypassing the APIs altogether.
Yeah, this prevents data lock-in and acts as your ultimate uncorruptible safety net.
A literal hard copy of your digital brain. Okay, let's pull all of this together. You now have the blueprint for a master level 2 brain system. You have Workflowy acting as your fluid, lightning-fast mind capturing ideas instantly on mobile, navigating via search operators instead of folders, and incubating your messy thoughts.
Yep.
And you have Notion acting as your structured, permanent memory, running your Kanban boards, storing your claim-based cell-casted notes, and holding your complex projects. By respecting the boundary between the RAM and the hard drive, you can stop fighting your tools and start letting them work for you.
This raises an important question, though, and it is something the architecture documents hint at but don't explicitly resolve. It's a bit of a psychological paradox.
Oh, what is that?
Well, if our digital tools are literally shaping our cognitive architecture, what happens to our own organic memory when we start treating it purely like Workflowy's fleeting, disposable nodes? Yeah, if we train our brains to just instantly dump every single thought into a digital inbox because we trust the capture system so completely, do we lose the organic capacity to hold complex ideas in our own heads?
That's a little terrifying.
And if we rely entirely on Notion databases to define our permanent identity and history, do we lose the ability to organically remember who we are when the screens go dark?
Wow. We set out to build the ultimate system to manage our minds, and we might just end up outsourcing our minds entirely to the filing cabinet. If the system is perfect, maybe we stop needing to remember anything at all. Something for you to ponder as you set up your new architecture. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Go test out your new hybrid setup, respect the boundaries of your tools, and we will catch you on the next one.